One of the biggest mistakes I see designers make when they're building out a design system is building static modules, layouts, or cars that don't really have much customization. Like this example on the left-hand side here, where it's basically just full of individual components with no real ability to swap those in and out with purpose. Instead, what you should always be doing is building out card components, layout components, or modal components using what we call slots. So here you have the ability to customize the amount of rows that you might want to have in your card or your layout, and then easily have the option to swap these in and out to fit your specific use case. And today we're going to look at how to do just that, starting with our slot components. So we're going to look at our slot component, building up columns and rows. For looking at our placeholders, we're finally building out just some real sample cards and layouts and showing you how to utilize this methodology the right way. Let's dive in. Okay, so really what that first step would be is we need to prep our slot component before we start building our column layouts, our row layouts, which will translate into our modals, our cards, and all that other fun stuff. Okay, so what we're going to do to start is this can really be anything. There's no specific styling that you need to have here. So we're just going to call this our slot components. Maybe just center that. Let's maybe go with just our body medium for now. Let's go ahead and add some auto layout. Okay, so let's set this to sort of our text action. Let's add a fill here, which is going to be our surface action hover too. Again, flying through this because the styling here does not really matter at all. For border, let's go with our border action. And let's maybe just go ahead and add just a quick dash just so it looks as if it's almost like a placeholder for something. Let's then go ahead and add in a radius. There we go. Let's go ahead and call this our slot. Let's then go ahead, create the component of this, bring down a symbol that we'll do some testing with a little bit later on. And there we go. There we have our initial slot component. So with this out of the way, let's now go ahead and start looking at our row components and our column components, or what you might also call your row layouts and your column layouts. Okay, so now that we have our initial slot component, let's look at actually translating this into column layouts and then row layouts, starting with our column layouts. So it's much easier than you were probably expecting. So here we just have that symbol of our main components that we copied over a little bit earlier on. So what we're actually gonna do is take this symbol, and then what we're gonna do is instead of detaching it, because we wanna maintain that slot component that's inside of the component that will be inside of the column or row layout. Tongue twister, I know. So what we're gonna do is let's go ahead, right click on the symbol of our main component, and let's create a component over top of it. So we're going to have a symbol of our component within our column or row component. So let's start off with our columns to start. So let's go call this our column. And now let's go ahead and let's add in a variant here. So what we're then going to do is let's call our property just columns. And then this one here will be one column. And then this one here will be two column, so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is with inside our two column, let's simply copy and paste. And then let's go ahead and just add some auto layout. Let's say maybe something like 24. There we go. So really that easy. But at the same time, though, is if we take one of these symbols out, all we have here is just being able to change the number of columns from 1 to 2. But what about actually changing the component within that slot component itself? And that's the whole purpose of using slots. So it allows you to build some pretty complex, not necessarily complex, but it streamlines the way in which you're actually able to build things like modals, cards, and all these different kinds of layouts by putting other components inside of them. So what we need to do is we need to go into our first one to start. So select this the slot component from your layers, and I realize my face might be hiding in that. So what we're really doing is just selecting the slot component inside of the variants, and then we're going to create an instance swap. So create an instance swap property on that slot component that we are going to call slot 1. And then in our second row, what we're going to do is we're going to select that first slot in the column itself. So selecting not the variant, but the slot, the first slot, and we're going to apply the same instance swap on that slot component. Same thing with our second slot. So we're going to create a property, and this is going to be slot 2. There we go. That easy. And now let's keep going down here. So we're going to have 3. Let's go ahead, copy that one here, and then let's just detach slot 2 from the third slot, and then create a new instance swap here for slot 3. Let's do the same again. So this is going to be 4. Add another column. Create a new instance swap for slot 4. Let's do all the way to 6. There we go. So this is going to be 5. Let's go ahead and copy another one. Detach that instance swap. Create a new property for slot 5. And now let's do lastly one for slot 6. So this is going to be 6. And there we go. Copy and paste. Detach that one. Create a new instance swap property for slot 6. And then there we go. So now all of a sudden, when I bring down one of these symbols of one of these columns, so now I have the option, as you can see, to toggle on and off the number of columns that I might want, again, allowing me to create all of these different layouts. Maybe I want to change slot 1 to something like a button. There we go. Now I have that option to do so easily from the properties. So there we go. There we have our column layouts. Next, what we're going to do is look at our row layouts. Okay, so now that we have our column components, again, our column slot components, let's go ahead and create our row components. Now, with our row components, we're about 85% of the way there already. Is what we're really going to do is we're going to select our overall component set for our columns, and then copy and paste that out. So really that simple. We're then going to go ahead and call this our row. And now let's simply just go ahead and make some adjustments here, give ourselves plenty of space. We're going to select all of these different elements here. And oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Make sure you don't copy them. Select all of them, and using your auto layout, you're simply going to change it to vertical layout. Just like that. And now we got to do some rearranging. So there's the 2. So now we have 2 rows. Now we have our 3 rows. And bear with me just while I do some reorganization here. Now we have our 4 rows. Sure you get the picture by now, but let's go ahead and do it together. There we have 5. And then there we have our 6. So all of our properties are going to stay exactly the same with these. It's because we already have all our instance swaps applied. But now we have our slot, our column, and then also our rows. So before we get into actually building out some modals and some cards, one thing we're going to do is actually just build out some placeholders that we'll use to populate some of our layouts using our slot components, both the column and the row level as well. Okay, so now that we have our row components and our column components, let's go ahead and actually build out some placeholder components that will go into those modals or cards using those row and column components. Pretty complex, I know. But let's go ahead and just add some text here. So let's just go headline, medium length. I don't know, something like this. Let's go ahead. Let's set this to our H6 and set this to our text headings. Let's then go ahead, add some auto layout here, and just simply get rid of all the padding in gap entirely. And then let's go ahead and just call this our copy. All right, so let's go ahead then, create the component of this, and let's add in a text property here that we're just going to call our heading. There we go. And then let's go ahead on our main component, add a variance. And then here, what we're going to call this, our property 1 is our type. This one here is going to be our H6, because again, this here is our H6. If I double click in here, this is our heading H6. And you probably guessed it, this one here is going to be our heading H5. There we go. And we'll still maintain the exact same heading property here. But then let's go ahead and just call this our H5. So you can do this all the way down, all the way down or up the line, depending on what number you started with, whether you're H6 or you're H1. But we'll maybe just do one more. I won't bore you by doing them all. I'll leave that for you to do on your own. And let's go ahead and call this our H4. Let's go ahead then apply our H4. And now if I bring up a symbol here, I can change between our H6 or H5 or H4 and also adjust this as well. Something like hello. There we go. And one thing we just want to always make sure is make sure that our components here are set to fill. Perfect. Sweet. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way for our headings, let's go ahead and do the same, but for our copy. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead then and simply just look for our body. So maybe just our body. Let's start off with our body small. And I am just going to go into another page here and grab in some lorem ipsum and then simply just paste that in. Oops, that is not right. What happened there? Because our heading property is still applied. So let's detach that heading property, and then let's go ahead then, and this will be our body small, as the type variance. And then let's go ahead and create a new property here that we're going to call our copy. There we go. So now when I bring down a symbol for testing here, we have our body small. We can easily adjust that copy and we can switch back to our headlines if we would like. So we're going to do the same here real quick, give ourselves plenty of space to work with. I still have my symbol. I'll delete that. Let's do the same here for our body medium. There we go. And let's go ahead and change this from our body small to our body medium. Let's then do the same for our body large. Large. There we go. For our body large. Wicked. There we go. Let's make sure this set to fill, and set to fill. So now when I bring up a symbol for testing here, maybe bring it off to the side, give ourselves a little bit more room, move this in. We can then have our H4s, our H5s, our H6s, and also our body small, medium, and large that we can toggle between. So this is what we're doing when we want to build out some of our placeholders, but we still need to combine our headings and our copy to build what we call a copy block. And we're going to look at that next. Okay, so we have our copy components. Let's now really quickly just build out our copy blocks. So what we're going to do, let's maybe take our H5 here. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Copy one out, our H5, and then our body medium. And let's go ahead and combine these together just like that. So Shift A. Let's go ahead, adjust our gap here, maybe something like 12. 12 I think is just fine. Let's go ahead and call this our copy block. Let's make sure that these are set to fill. That's set to fill. This is also set to fill. Let's go ahead, create the component of this, bring out a symbol for testing, and I can see that our text is responsive. So we're off to a flying start here. Let's then go ahead on our main component and be sure to add in those nested instances here. So now when I hit our symbol, we have all those properties that we just made that we can edit. So I can swap this out from our body small. If I wanted to make an H4 as well, you also have the option to do so. Okay, sweet. So if you can also have some different variants for your copy block. So I'm going to go ahead, add in a variance. What we're going to call this is our type. This can also be alignment as well if you'd like. And our first one here is going to be our left because that's left aligned. And then what we're going to do is also just do a center alignment here where we say simply just take the text and center align everything as well. I always like to do the auto layout alignment in the center as well, just to maintain some consistency. So now on a symbol of our copy block, we now have our left. Oops, I didn't rename center. There we go. Our types. Now we have our left and then our center. So it just gives us some flexibility when we're building out some of our layouts using those slot components. Okay, perfect. So we have our copy and our copy block out of the way. Lastly, what we're going to look at, just in terms of our placeholder, before we actually get into building out some of those layouts, is our image placeholder, which is a little bit more complex than you might imagine. Okay, so now that we have our copy and our copy block placeholders, what we're going to do is we're going to add some images. So in terms of your image placeholders, I actually like to use a community file for this. And again, I'll put a link for this in the description. But essentially, it's a fixed aspect ratio spacer placeholder image. So let me go ahead and just place this in for now. Maybe just change the background to black just so you can see it. So essentially what they have here, which is absolutely genius, is you have, if you look at the left-hand and layers here, sorry, I know my face is probably covering it, but you have all these different ratios for your images. And the beauty of this is if I just extend it out, again, I'm not even using the scale tool here, it's just the move. No matter what way you scale it, is the aspect ratio always stays the same. So if I was just to swap in here the image for just this image of the great city that I'm in now, of Toronto, see how the scale always stays the same. That's the case for any of these image options here as well. So let me just bring back in that image of Toronto here. There we go. So the aspect ratio always stays put. which is genius in my opinion. And again, I'll put a link for this in the description. So what I always like to do here is let me go ahead and let me just swap out that image. Is I like to take just a couple of these because again, you're not going to need all these specific sizes. Again, if you want all these specific sizes, go ahead. Maybe let's just start to clean these up a bit. Maybe we'll get rid of these ones here, get rid of our golden ratios. Again, just maybe to clean it up a little bit. And then maybe let's go with a 3x4. So again, what I'm going to do is bring in that image of Toronto. There we go, image of Toronto. So we got our 3x4, maybe go with 3x2, and maybe we'll just stick with that for now. So you can kind of just pick and choose what sizes that you want. So let's go ahead, delete all these, delete all these, delete all these, delete the ones that you don't want. And it saves us from having to build this on our own or whatnot. But anyways, there we go. Let's go ahead and call this our image. So really cheating here, but again, it saves us just that, all the effort in recreating. Change this back to white, and then there we go. There we have our image placeholders. And again, the beauty of this is that the aspect ratio remains fixed, even without using that scale tool. Perfect. So now that we have our copy block, and our image, now let's go ahead and start looking at building out some modals, some cards, and some layouts using those slot components and these placeholders that we have right here. Okay, so we have our slots and our layouts. We have our placeholders. Now let's go ahead and build out some modals or cards, at least just show you how easy it is leveraging your slot components to build modals, cards, and even layouts for your pages, all leveraging those slot components. So what we're going to go ahead and do is let's go into our slot component here and just pull in maybe our rows for now. And one thing I realized I had forgotten to do before is in our row, this property was columns. So I just changed that to rows. So what we're going to do, maybe we'll set this to 3 for now. And then let's go ahead and make some adjustments here. So for slot 1, maybe we want to add just in like an image here. There we go. So we have an image. And one thing I realized I forgot to do as well is I forgot to set all of the individual slots here to fill. So they're all set to hug, which is why they appear as such. So what you can do is you can really just go in and just simply adjust those to fill for now, or you can go back to the main component and set all those slots to fill. Okay, so anyways, let's continue. So we have our image here. Next, let's go ahead and maybe for slot 2, we add in like a copy block, just like that. And again, let's click and set this to fill. And then let's go ahead in this slot 3 here and set our button here to, our slot to a button, sorry. Okay, so let's then go ahead and let's add some auto layout here. And let's go ahead and call this just a card, like a copy card or a modal. Let's add a fill. Let's add a little horizontal padding, 24, a little vertical padding, maybe also 24. Set the fill to our surface primary. And maybe we'll add a quick stroke here, which is our border primary. There we go, just like that. So then that's just an example as to how we might have if we do it this way here too. Got to make sure that our row expands out. There we go. That's just a really good example as to how we can build a copy card or type of layout using our column or our row components. So maybe let's go back into our row here. Let's grab in just one row, and then maybe let's go with a 2. Maybe we'll set the slot here to like a field. Oops, maybe not a field, but maybe just an input. There we go. So we have just a real sample input. Set this back to fill. And then maybe we change this one here to something like a button. Our button. There we go. So then we have our button. Let's go ahead, add some auto layouts, 24 by 24. And then let's go ahead and call this maybe like a newsletter sign up. Just like that. And then what we can do lastly is let's maybe just go ahead and add in another row component. And this time we'll set it to our slot 6. Let's go ahead, add some auto layout, set this 24 by 24. And we're going to call this our blank card. So when there's no real specific formatting that we're using, we're really giving designers the option to just customize accordingly. And of course, if they need to hide specific slots, they can do so. Again, this is why documentation is really important. They can do so at the individual layer level. So again, we're building some pre-built layouts that designers can consume, and also a blank one as well. What we're going to do then is let's combine all of them and then create a component set out of all of these that maybe we're just going to call our cards. And one thing I forgot to do here is just add in a quick stroke. So a border primary. Let's make sure we have a fill here as well, just to be consistent. The surface primary, and then a fill for our surface primary. There we go. So now when I take in one of these cards, if we just call these our type, there we go. The designer, when they're consuming our design system, maybe just put these all lowercase just to maintain consistency. Newsletter sign up with the rest of our properties. There we go. So then when a designer, they can consume a card component, what they have the option is to easily toggle out between all of these different options, or create their own using with this blank card component, where they can actually customize the amount of slots that they have within that layout, and also the components that go inside of those slots. So this type of process can be repeated for your cards and your modals as well. And again, I understand that these cards are not the best looking, but we're not here to build the best looking design system, just the most functional. So again, this is a really great trick, leveraging these slot components on how you can build modals, cards, even dashboards using your slot components that are super customizable based on the components that you have within your design system.